There's never been a better time to have Sirius XM. With over 140 channels in your vehicle, your all-access trial includes more than ever before to enjoy online, on your phone, or at home. Create your own ad-free personalized stations powered by Pandora. Hear ad-free extra channels and enjoy favorite shows with SiriusXM Video on Demand. What you love is on now.
Chez Fortin Autoradio, nous avons tout pour votre voiture. Radio d'auto, système d'alarme, téléphone cellulaire et accessoires électroniques. Pour un son de choix dans votre auto, camion ou même votre bateau, on vous offre la gamme complète des systèmes de son Blowpunkt. Notre équipe de professionnels peut accueillir jusqu'à 12 voitures à la fois. Pour seulement 299 $, obtenez ce magnifique lecteur de cassette digital stéréo AM/FM auto-inversion avec tiroir anti-vol. Fortin Autoradio, 7321 Henri Bourassa Est. Tout pour votre auto.
How's that for some throwback action, man? Wow. That's blowing my mind right now. What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in this session of CMA Connected. I'm your host, Ben Wu. And as you can see from that interesting intro, we have as a guest today somebody who represents a brand that's near and dear to so many of us in the Canadian 12-volt electronics world, in particularly to me, who as a kid grew up, in Montreal, falling in love with 12-volt. And this was a name obviously synonymous with that. I'm not even sure what year that's from. I'm going to guess it's early 90s. But we're talking about Fortin now. And that video in particular was Fortin Auto Radio, which is their retail location. But, for those of you who are watching this, I'm sure you're full aware that that has evolved into a much more interesting and much more diverse business for the brand name Fortin. And today, the guest I have can tell us all about it. I mean, he's been around the block. He knows his stuff, and he is the guy when it comes to talking about Fortin products. I'm going to bring him on now. His name is Jean-Paul Raymond, and he's the sales manager for Fortin. Welcome to CMA Connected, Mr. JP.
Hey, hello, Ben. Glad to be there with you. Oh. So, yeah, that certainly brought back a lot of memories. I mean, actually, if you look at the vehicles in there, that was back in the mid 80s. And
80s. I wasn't sure if that was 90s or 80s. Yeah. I saw some of those vehicles are pretty dated.
Well, when you go back, if you really think about it, Fortin started in the car audio business back in 1972. Prior to that, the founder, late Jacques Fortin, was a TV repair guy back in the day of tubes. And it so happened that one day, because it was, even back then, was a little tough to install car audio, you needed some knowledge. A car audio salesman walked up to him and said, maybe because you're a technician, you can do some of these. And that was back in 72, and that's how the Fortin Auto Radio business started. In fact, it's kind of hilarious because there was a garage back there that was used to store repairs and things that were going out delivered, because back then everybody delivered back your TV with a van. The garage was so small that when they were installing door speakers, which was the only thing that really existed back then, they would drive the car in, do one door, take the car out, back it up, and do the other door. And that's how it all started. Now, even if you look at this and going back to the fact that it was mid 80s, there was room for 12 cars, as the ad states in there. So it rapidly grew, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think many people and many of the industry professionals would agree, and those of you that have been in the game long enough, that mid 80s to mid 90s was a time that everything was just absolutely blowing up. The advent between that cassette and that CD era, car audio, that's what did it for me. And I'm happy to have you on today, JP, because we're talking about a brand that has a lineage, that has a pedigree within the Canadian 12-volt environment, and the storyline that is Fortin. We saw from, the video there that obviously retail was where it began. So, you mentioned 1972. Did I get that right? Is when the business actually started?
You got that right. You
So
got
from
that right.
1972, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They dominated, that market in Montreal. Yeah, of course, no disrespect to a couple of the other, longtime businesses in Montreal, but listen, Fortin has always been cutting edge as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you for that. Now, if we bring history perhaps a little closer, back in the late, give or take, 90s, Fortin was installing a ton of remote starter, both retail and on the expediter side, because we are still the largest expediter on the island of Montreal, and you'll understand why as we talk a little bit more about this later. But the point I want to make is there was big business in remote starters for Fortin. But in about 2000, car manufacturers started coming out with factory anti-theft system that was going to, basically can all the remote starter business because we could no longer start a vehicle. So fortunately, Fortin had some very good techs and some smart people. And they decided that, hey, we still want to retain that business. So how can we do it? So they started, and the first few bypasses that were actually created was by baking a key in an oven. They had found the right temperature, cutting the key and taking out the chip, doing a wrap, and basically using the chip from inside the key. So those were the first bypasses. And
before you go too far, I just want to highlight this moment in time, because I remember, car starters were, just going out the door, right? And so I can imagine, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. Here you are, the manufacturer said, whoa, no, this is not going to continue like this, guys. And they introduced this new key technology. So when you say it really threw a wrench in the system, it was, it was out of necessity that you had no choice but to figure out what to do.
Absolutely. And quite frankly, at about the same time, there was one rep, which company's name escapes me, that came in, and his business card was actually a flexible PC board. And that's how we created the ring around the ignition using that flexible PC board. We still have those available. They're the AR, and they are still on our price list. So when people are stuck doing a key wrap, they can use, a key in the box if they elect to, and that'll be your perfect ring around the ignition switch. No guesswork in that one, because it just sticks right there. So essentially, some of the reps locally saw what we were doing. Two of them, in fact, Paul Gagnon, which is still a distributor of ours, and Les Termils Soucy, basically asked Fortin if they could sell the bypasses so that other stores could continue their remote start business. And that's how Fortin Electronic System was actually born. So back in the day, I'll tell you, there were bypasses kind of like this that would only do a few car models. I'm sure.
Why don't you show the camera? Yeah, put that in front of the camera a little bit closer. Yeah, look at that.
I'm sure some of you remember those. You had them on your pegboard. And unfortunately, the ones that you would need on a Saturday afternoon was always the one that you did not have, if you kind of see what I'm saying. So, and that ran for several years. During those years, Fortin was also an OEM manufacturer for a bunch of different companies. As you know, Ben, my background in the remote starter goes back to Astro, and we were a Fortin customer for some of our OEM stuff. So was Directed, so has been several companies, Crime Stopper amongst others, just to name a few, because there are more. And eventually, with the help of new engineers, new blood that came into the company evolved and became a programmable type bypass where only one was needed to do a multitude of vehicles. So again, if you're talking about the Evo All was where it really all started being programmable with the use of a flash link, which is this guy right here. Essentially, you can make the module perform on just about every vehicle that you would like. So makes life very, very easy. You only need to carry one product.
That must have been a big game changer when that came out.
Oh, it definitely was. Fortin was the first to came out with that type of product. And trust me, it was definitely a game changer, because let's face it, before that, when you would look at a bypass, you'd say, well, you give me 2 GM, you give me 3 Fords, you give me 4 Chryslers. And all of a sudden you could order a dozen bypasses and they all fitted on the different vehicles. So
Imagine
Yeah.
whatever, if there was a shortage in inventory or you made a mistake on your order, then all of a sudden you're messed up because you didn't have the right application. Yeah, that would have sucked for
Oh,
sure.
it did. I mean, I remember back in those days traveling and seeing retailers that, were stuck with a bunch of them on a pegboard. And eventually, when the programmable bypass came around, it was a relief to those guys to say, gee, I can stock this one and it'll do virtually everything. So yeah, quite a change. Quite a change.
So it sounds like what happened is out of need, with the chip and the key and all that, something happened and there was, I guess, a realization that, hey, you know what? We need these type of products. And I guess that started with the bypass.
Exactly. And as time went on, Fortin was also manufacturing in small quantity an analog starter called the RS400. And sure enough, all of a sudden, one of the engineers, as the team was growing, realized that everything could be packaged in the same box. And eventually, everything became an Evo 1. So all in one box, small format, analog starter and bypass in this one box. So if you think about it, size-wise, it is much smaller than a combination of two modules. Number two, it only has one power supply to feed, so it's much less current draw on the battery than using two units. And it has an Evo wall built on the inside. So essentially, this is, the wave of the future. It was the first one to come out in the marketplace, and that was 6 years ago. So,
all right, very cool. Well, just to reflect, you mentioned the Evo All, which came out. What year did the Evo All come out?
The Evo All came out in 2014.
So 6 years ago, and I mean, still right there on the roster today. Obviously, probably in its second or third rendition, but there it is from a packaging standpoint. And the Evo 1 that you mentioned, still very relevant right to today.
Absolutely.
All right.
So two interesting product. Now, to get the full cake mix, so to speak, Fortin also needed remotes. So in the last couple of years, we introduced some remotes, which we feel are, world class. So for example, Series 9 is a LoRa-based system that can accompany our Evo 1, and that will give you 6,000 feet of range. So for those of you that are not necessarily familiar with LoRa, it is a technology that's used in the military and the aerospace industry. The nice thing about LoRa is that, battery life can be increased if you understand how the chip works. One thing about that chip is when you first send the command, it does not send full power. It is waiting for a response back. If it doesn't see a response back, it will increase power. So it's not always on full power. Therefore, battery life is increased. Now, the other thing about LoRa, the chip has the ability to do what's called spread spectrum. For those of you that may not be familiar with spread spectrum, I guess the best way to illustrate spread spectrum is if we look at the comparison between a rifle and a shotgun. A rifle only has one bullet. Well, a normal remote will only operate at one frequency, where your spread spectrum is multiple BBs, as in a shotgun. It's multiple frequency, and you only need one to reach the receiver to perform the action that you're demanding from the vehicle. So again, it is truly IN technology. We introduced this product already 4 years ago, and it is still the one to beat in the marketplace. In parallel with that, we also introduced another series of remote, which are FM. Again, for those of you that may not necessarily recognize the difference between an AM remote and an FM remote, I suggest that when you leave the store today or the office, that you put your radio in your vehicle on the AM band and see what kind of interference it is prone to getting. Now, if you put it on FM, you'll notice that there's no noise. The signal is perfectly clean. Well, that's kind of the difference between using an AM or FM band as far as broadcasting from your remote goes. We believe in FM because it is a much cleaner signal. These remotes in the Series 4, again, there are 3 of those remotes. So there's a 1-button, a 4-button, and a 4-button two-way. Will give you 2,500 feet of range. So as you can see, what Fortin has done in the last several years is surround itself by specialists in just about every field so that the business can actually increase and grow in size to get all the ingredients to mix that cake.
So you're talking about the recipe, you're talking about the ingredients. Let's talk about the kitchen. How much of this product is made in Canada, in Montreal?
The product itself, whether you're looking at an Evo All, an Evo 1, that is all manufactured right downstairs from where I'm sitting right now, Ben.
Interesting.
As far as transmitter goes, the technology for those is better served in Asia. But we do 100% QC when they come in. And the nice thing about manufacturing Evo All and Evo 1 in Canada, when I worked for another manufacturer that was securing product from offshore, what they would do is, let's say a batch of 1,000 product would come in. They would take the first 20 by serial number, middle 20 by serial number again, and last 20 by serial number, and they would test those out. And it was deemed that if these work, the remaining 940 would be perfect. So it was, give or take, 6%
like a random
QC.
selection kind of.
Exactly. Where in this case, every single unit, because we manufacture them, is tested before it leaves our factory. So we know that it works when it leaves.
That's
so
cool.
Big difference there.
So the box, the grain, they're all done right here.
Yep, they're all done right here in Canada.
Amazing.
So,
no, I really wanted to drill that home because you know what? In our industry, there's not a ton of product which is manufactured domestically here in Canada. So it's nice to highlight or profile some that are, such as Fortin. So,
well, thank you for that. And if you think about it, when we are testing product, we can test them in our own parking lot. I mean, the temperature variation in this province is just sometimes nasty, if I may call it that. Too cold in the wintertime, too hot in the summertime, but yet it gives us a perfect chance to test the product that we are going to put in the marketplace under extreme condition, where if you get them manufactured offshore, they're tested, in temperature chambers, freezers, and all this kind of stuff, which does not necessarily represent what the vehicle is going to be facing day in and day out. Plus, let alone the fact that with the snow that we get in this country, there's always humidity inside the vehicle and all this kind of stuff.
It's a harsh environment, no doubt.
Very harsh. So manufacturing them in Canada gives us a chance to test all the units in our parking lot every day of the year.
Full out AC to full out heat in 6 months, right? I mean, that's just
absolutely. Sometimes in the same day.
Sometimes, especially for our friends in Alberta, man, you get some crazy weather out there. That's
exactly.
Crazy. I know we got some questions coming, but we're going to kind of circle back to those questions because there is one more key element about Fortin I want to get to, JP, and that is the T harness. So tell us about the T harness. When did that come about, and what does that mean to you right now as a brand?
Well, one of the things that I spoke about earlier is the fact that we are still the largest expediter on the island of Montreal. And being in close proximity with the car dealers, we realized several years back that these guys were a little leery when we started splicing into the wiring, especially on brand new vehicles. So they wanted a way for those vehicles to remain as intact as possible and allow for the mechanic to be able to just unplug and be able to do a diagnostic should any problem occur with that particular vehicle. So basically, we sat back and decided to create T harnesses. Well, we use them at our expediter level, and like all other product, they eventually trickled outside the building and went in the marketplace. Now, interesting, T harnesses we evolved basically are also evolving. What's happening in the newer vehicles, Ben, is the fact that they're using aluminum wires now. They have to cut the weight back on the vehicle because everybody is shooting for a target in the US called CAFE, which stands for Corporate Average Fuel Economy, meaning that if you're brand X of vehicles, you got to achieve a certain number of miles to the gallon. If you're not achieving that, the federal government in the US is penalizing you with very, very big fines. So what they're doing is that at one extreme, if you take a Ford, for example, they'll sell a Fiesta, which is a high mileage car. But on the flip side of that coin, they'll sell you an F-250 pickup, which is a gas guzzler, and they got to average that out to a certain number, which, of course, I don't know what the numbers are. But in order to achieve that number, they're trying to make everything lighter. This is why the F-150 is now made out of aluminum, so it's a lighter chassis.
So all the wiring, so the body, and now the wiring, they went from copper to aluminum.
Exactly, to cut on the weight.
I'm old school, but soldering aluminum and copper together, they don't get along.
Exactly. The more reason to use a T-harness.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, T-harnesses, I've been to different stores, with the CMA Connected. Like we went to my friend Jeff, right, over at Lockdown. He's got a wall of these things. So obviously they're pretty popular.
They are. And again, if you notice ours, they're all done with cloth tape. I mean, we try to do something that would mimic the factory as much as possible. So the cloth tape is essential in doing that. There are times, if run properly, your T-harness will look very, very factory. And it seems that using a T-harness, quite frankly, if there's ever a problem with the car, and Lord knows we get blamed for problems with vehicles, including a flat tire, all the aftermarket products always get the bad rap. It seems that if there's a T-harness, mechanics will wreck their brains a little more to figure out what the problem is, because they see that nothing has really been touched.
Because it looks so factory under the...
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Now I'm going to circle back to some questions here, because I know it's been up there for a bit. So I got Jeff Faith asking, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. This is pretty specific, so I'm sure you can read that. The RF641W and the RF642W staying on as current models, or are they being replaced by the RFK441 and the RFK442 kits?
They are being replaced by the 4 Series, Jeff. So those are going to come off the price list, and the 4 Series is where it's going to go. If you look at the 4 Series over the 6 Series, number one, it is much slimmer. It is also less obtrusive, and it doesn't have the sticky antenna stub on the end of the remote that always gets stuck in your pocket, and longer battery life. So the 4 is definitely the way to go.
Obviously he's a fan. I did mention, and here he is saying amazing when it comes to T-harness availability and build quality. So,
well, thank you for that.
Let's tell the folks, I mean, we're not going to go deep into product today. Just wanted to do a quick overview. But like, what's coming up? Like, I know that on, in the next few weeks, we have Industry Week coming up, and you have a couple announcements you want to make. Can you touch a little bit about what we're going to be talking about?
Well, we're going to be talking about perhaps some new solutions. We're going to be talking about some new T-harnesses that are going to be coming. We're also right now looking at improving our warranty policy, so I should have more details about that during Distributor Week. Again, what I would like to touch on, if I may, Ben, is looking at the last year, which was a very different year than any other year, being a pandemic year, and the fact that we as a company were pretty much shut down for a period of 3 months. Nevertheless, we did come out with some very exciting product in the 9 months that remain. We came out with 2 hard-to-crack solutions. One of them was the Toyota Corolla and your RAV4 H key. We're still the only company with the T-harness for those 2 vehicles. And we also have the Mazda CX-3 and CX-30, sorry, and Mazda 3 solution. And we're the only ones with the T-harness as well. So, and we introduced a total of 10 new T-harnesses in the year of pandemic. So we're pretty happy. This year looks like there's not going to be any shutdown. So you can expect some big things to come out of this building. Imagine
you did that during pandemic times, kind of lower work schedule. So that's pretty impressive. And you know what? Make no mistake about it, guys. Making T-harnesses is a ton of R&D every single time. Am I right?
It truly is. It truly is. I mean, it goes from, finding what connector the manufacturer is using. Then again, finding a manufacturer that would have a corresponding connector. If not, a mold has to be made to create the connector. And then, of course, there's many, many connectors on one T-harness. I mean, I've got one here that I was showing earlier. I'll just back it up a bit, and you guys can see how many connectors there is. So if you look at this, you'll see that it takes a lot of figuring out as to what the connectors are and all this kind of stuff. So again, T-harnesses are a complex thing to build.
Mo's asking, do the T-harnesses work with different models of Fortin products? Are they universal, I guess, is what he's asking.
Kind of interesting. An EvoAll T-harness, because we have them for EvoAll and EvoOne. The key difference is on your EvoAll, they will do the data portion. EvoAll has the ability to start low-powered vehicle, where the EvoOne can start older vehicle because it's got a high-powered starter built in. It also offers several more features. In some example, the EvoOne will offer takeover where the EvoAll would not, even if you've got a low-powered vehicle. It'll offer temperature if you're using a phone app, because it's got a built-in thermistor that the EvoAll doesn't have. Now, having said that, the EvoAll T-harness will fit on an EvoOne, is the same connector for data. So all you'd be left with at that point is your high-powered connections. You could, vice versa, use an EvoOne harness on an EvoAll, but then what would you do with the high-power connector?
We talked about the remotes earlier on, and really, my opinion on remotes is that it's, design is critical. How it looks and feels in your hand is critical, because let's be honest, that's the part that the customer takes away from the purchase, right? So here's a question, and I don't know if you have the answer for it, but I'm going to throw it up there, JP. Any plans for a Fortin LCD remote?
No, there are no plans, and I'll tell you why that is. Everybody now carries the best LCD in their pocket, and that is your cell phone.
Interesting.
So, and the other thing from a retailer's standpoint, I mean, I've sold LCD in the past with other companies, and the problem is you get blamed for a dead battery. Well, if the phone battery dies, it's not your problem. They get dropped. Most LCD screens will just break. And then there's always the warranty, not warranty, the argument, where if they drop their phone, you've got nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can get a lot more information on a phone than you would any LCD for that matter. So that's why we're not going that route. So
now, are we already app driven as we speak, or is that something being developed?
Phone app, we've got a local phone app in Quebec and Ontario that works on a private network called Auto Data, OTO Data, which the nice thing is, for now anyways, it is totally free of charge. It's a one-time purchase, and that's about the cost of an LCD remote. Outside, we are working on a LTE phone app that'll work in North America, and that should be ready for next selling season.
I got one more question for you right here, JP, again from our friend Jeff. Any plans for a North American-wide EvoStart platform?
There we go. That was the answer prior, Jeff, where, yes, we're going to have an Evo platform that's going to be LTE, and it will work throughout North America. That's scheduled for next selling season.
Next selling season. Very interesting.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll be able to circle back and maybe get some more details from you, JP, as that happens.
Absolutely, and I'll talk perhaps a little bit more about it when Distributed Week happens, right?
Awesome, man. Well, JP, we're already at the bottom of the hour. You know what? My mission was to get people a sense of what Fortin was all about. You did that brilliantly. Thank you for all the examples and a little bit of a history lesson. I think this sets us up well for the next time we have you back, which will be during Industry Week, where we get to dive a little bit deeper into the new products and the new applications that Fortin has. And obviously, we're going to be talking again on future Connected episodes when there's more stuff to talk about.
Well, perfect. Thank you for having me, Ben.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Take care, JP.
All right, bye.
All right, there you have it, guys. JP Raymond, sales manager for Fortin. We talked a lot about Industry Week because, guys, it's coming up. It's coming up fast, March 22nd to April 1st. Here's a quick trailer.
Introducing CMA Industry Week Spring Showcase 2021, a multi-day online event slated for March 22nd to April 1st, featuring all the major Canadian 12-volt electronics distributors presenting in both English and in French. The schedule will feature in-depth interviews, training sessions, keynote speakers, product unveilings, and much more. Access to CMA Industry Week will be completely free for all retailers and industry professionals. Choose to watch both live or on demand. Stay connected by visiting CanadianMobileAudio.com/industryweek.
Totally looking forward to that. We've got so many plans, and look for a big announcement coming on Thursday this week. The entire schedule is going to be published. You're going to know exactly what brands, what time they're going live, where to watch it, the whole 9 yards. So Thursday, look out for that. All the details on Industry Week. Another exciting news this week, 2 days from now, we are launching season 2 of CMA Live, which is going down at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night. Our very first session, 20 episodes, mind you, for scheduled for 2021. We're going to have some essential gear brands. We're going to have Euphoria. We're going to have MTX. We're going to have Hertz Audio and Ground Zero. So lots of stuff going on. Make sure you tune back in on Wednesday for CMA Live. And of course, we have another Connected scheduled for later this week, Friday, when we go one-on-one with MTX and Trends Electronics. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you to JP for sharing with us all the story about Fortin Electronics. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.